While current and former leaders of the Scottish National Party are biting each other's throats, a new poll shows that the public is equally divided on independence. A poll by the Mail on Sunday found that 44% of Scots would vote against independence from the United Kingdom, while 43% were in favour of secession. If you exclude the undecided voters, it's about 50-50 on the question of independence. Although independence was rejected by 55 to 45% in a referendum in 2014, the stance on the split has fluctuated in recent months and reached support of up to 55%. In 22 consecutive polls, the pro-independence side had the majority. However, the last survey by the Mail on Sunday broke with this tradition. While the current result is the lowest for independence supporters in 9 months, a survey in January showed that the lead had fallen from 8 percentage points in October to just 2 points. The latest result has been interpreted by some as a sign of the public's lack of confidence in the Scottish National Party. The Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is embroiled in a brutal conflict with her predecessor shortly before the general election. That's really what one needs. The case becomes a threat to the independence movement, who were once inseparable partners in Scottish politics. Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon. They fought side by side in elections, in parliament and in government. They were united by a dream. The two wanted to lead Scotland to independence. For years he was the Scottish head of government. She was his deputy. After Salmond resigned after the defeat in the independence referendum in 2014, Sturgeon took over as First Minister and new chairman of the Scottish National Party, or chairwoman. Now, only about 2 months before the parliamentary elections, they are engaged in a bitter struggle that will also determine the next steps of the independence movement. A year ago, Salmond was in the dock. 9 women had charged him with sexual harassment and attempted rape, but he was acquitted by the court in March 2020. On Friday, he himself appeared as a prosecutor in the Scottish Parliament. He accused the political leadership in Scotland of failure for which no person has yet taken responsibility. His allegations target Sturgeon and those around her, and they weigh heavily. Salmond believes there has been a deliberate, ongoing, insidious and concerted attempt by a number of people in the Scottish government and the SNP. The aim was to damage his reputation and even put him in prison. He accuses, among other things, Sturgeon's husband and the SNP managing director Peter Murrell, as well as her closest confidant Leslie Evans. Sturgeon insists that these allegations are unfounded and unproven. Salmond is trying to create a parallel reality, she said on Wednesday at a press briefing. She is supposed to testify in front of Parliament herself next week. The scandal began with complaints from 2 Scottish officers who alleged Salmond of sexual harassment in January 2018. The Edinburgh government then started an internal investigation and some things went wrong. Among other things, it turned out that the officer who led the investigation had previously had contact with the plaintiffs. That shouldn't have happened and called into question their independence and credibility. Salmond went to court and received £500,000 in compensation from the Scottish government in 2019. By then the affair had expanded to include him. The police were investigating Salmond and he was temporarily arrested in January 2019. There was a lawsuit that ended in acquittal. After that, Salmond made it clear that he would take revenge. Now the Scottish Parliament is conducting 2 separate inquiries. One concerns the failure of the Scottish government. The second is to determine whether Nicola Sturgeon herself has violated the rules of the so-called ministerial code by misleading Parliament as to when exactly she found out about the allegations against Salmond. In April 2018, Salmond was at her home and told her about the allegations. No minutes were taken at this meeting. It later emerged that Sturgeon was said to have been informed of the allegations at this point in time. A few days earlier, she had spoken to an ex-Salmond employee about it. Sturgeon claims he simply forgot that meeting. Sturgeon has serious questions to answer. She is always very knowledgeable about the details, so it sounds implausible when she says that she has forgotten something essential, says Gary Hassan, author of several books on Scottish politics. He sees the possibility that Sturgeon will have to resign if the investigation determines that she has violated the Code of Conduct for government officials. But Salmond's approach also raises questions. He looks like he wants revenge at any cost. There's no longer any chance for him to go back into politics. His reputation is so badly damaged. Salmond is no longer inhibited, says Gary Hassan. That makes him so dangerous. So far, there is no plausible explanation as to why Sturgeon and other officials are said to have plotted against their former mentor. In any case, the scandal brings to light the mistakes of the Scottish government and the SNP party. And it plays into the hands of the British government. The Brexit and the coronavirus pandemic have meant that more Scots want independence from London. The polls have shown a slim majority for those in favour of the split for months. Until now, the wish for a state of its own was often justified by the fact that the quality of institutions in Edinburgh was much better than London. However, the conflict between Salmond and Sturgeon is now casting a shadow over the state of Scottish democracy. So dramatic is the affair that Conservative MP Liam Fox took the opportunity to describe Scotland as a pocket dictatorship. The impact of the scandal on the Scottish parliamentary elections in May cannot yet be foreseen. The polls still show a large majority for the SNP, but Sturgeon's popularity has already suffered from the affair. So far, the Scottish head of government has hoped for such a large majority that she can demand a second independence referendum from the British government. But this project could now be set back by years. That would be a blow to the independence movement and the end of Sturgeon's career. While the parliamentary inquiry is ongoing and Sturgeon is due to set out her version of the events next week, 33% of those polled by the Mail on Sunday believed that Salmond was the victim of an SNP plot. 50% believed Sturgeon should resign if the investigation reveals that she has broken the code. Regardless of the polls, the government of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has long tried to prevent the 2014 referendum from being repeated. Describing the referendum as a one-off event in a generation, Johnson said last month that attempts to hold the referendum again resulted in pointless constitutional wrangling. And I'm really curious how that's going to end in Scotland, because that's really decisive now. And if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel and to my other channels. I'll see you in my next video. Auf Wiedersehen.